Welcome everybody to the MiniMapCast. This is minimap.com.au's weekly games podcast, your favorite weekly games podcast. My name is Kerry Palmer, and joining me this week, as with every other week, is Jeremy Braditich.
Hello. Hello.
What's up, Jeremy?
I really wanted Indiana Jones 5 to be, at the very least, better than Temple of Doom, which is the second one.
Okay.
Because that movie's not... It's fine. It's totally fine. It's not...
Give me your ranking of the first three.
Raiders Lost Ark.
One.
Yeah, number 1, number 3, number 2.
Okay.
Last Crusade, then Temple of Doom. And then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Oh, no, sorry. The new one, the Dial of Destiny is 4th in list for me. It's better than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but it is not better than Temple of Doom.
By how much?
By a fair margin.
Oh no.
There's a lot of things in the new one that I didn't love. For the most part, there's like about 30 minutes of the film, not consecutively, but like over the film, there's about 30 minutes worth of a de-aged Harrison Ford.
30 minutes?
Like maybe a little bit less, but there's like a lot of it. There's like at least maybe 20 minutes at the beginning where he's like, it's an adventure of a younger Indiana Jones, and it is de-aged Harrison Ford, and it looks okay in screen grabs, but it doesn't look so good in motion. It's just that, you know, it's just that final, like it's still well in Uncanny Valley, like, and you know, conceptually I hate it, like, you know, they have a guy who once played a young Harrison Ford in a different Lucasfilms film. Get Aldrin Hendrickson, whatever his name is. He was pretty good as Solo. Get him to be young.
Could you imagine if you just happened to like get cast as one thing and then just be Harrison Ford's like young double in like everything he's in that they have a flashback in?
There are worse jobs to get than
like that reminds me of Tom Hanks' brother.
Oh, Jim Hanks.
Jim Hanks.
Yeah. Speaking of Kingdom Hearts, like we were in the post show, he's Woody in every piece of Kingdom Hearts media.
He's Woody in every piece of non-Tom Hanks Toy Story media.
Yeah, which is just the movies, I believe. Which is just like, imagine giving your brother that kind of job security. But yeah,
I created this role for you that I don't want.
There's a lot of de-aged Harrison Ford, and they didn't touch his voice at all, which means that he's like young.
There's a mismatch there.
There is a strong mismatch of, you know, young, you know, very handsome, dashing Harrison Ford, and then like, hey kid.
Yeah.
Like gruff.
Yeah, his voice is really down there now.
80-year-old rocky, crusty Harrison Ford voice, which don't get me wrong, like I like that voice, but it just didn't quite fit there.
Crusty Harrison.
Hey. But yeah, there's that, and also like a lot of it just didn't really feel that real, which is just kind of a shame. I really wanted it to feel real, but there was a lot of animation, and not a lot of it felt like they were really doing things.
His birthday was last Thursday.
Yes, it was.
Everybody say happy birthday, Harrison.
Happy birthday, Harrison. So yeah.
I really like how much he's just getting out there at the moment. He's in so much recently, and like I think it's just because he wants to be, and that's great.
Yeah, like, you know, like he likes Indiana Jones quite a lot. Like that's his like probably his favorite role that he's done. Just judging by his just the way he talks about it, and his just general like feeling about it and coming back and stuff. Like, you know, him thanking the audience for allowing him to be their man in the hat is quite sweet.
But also, like, he's doing that Apple Plus show, Shrinking, and he's signed up for being Thaddeus Ross for the next couple of phases of the MCU.
Oh,
like,
that's a paycheck though. That's a
yeah, but like he's still doing it. You know, he's showing up for all of these kind of high profile things.
There was a fantastically funny quote that Anthony Mackie, who plays the Falcon, was saying, like, you know, it's so cool to be around Harrison Ford, blah 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 blah. And he says, like, it's so cool being around him because he says, all right, let's get on with this shit.
Yeah, and like, let's shoot this shit.
Yeah, like, let's shoot. Yeah, but the way he said it is that he was excited that, yeah, like, it sounded like he's saying, like, okay, let's get this shit over and done with. And I remember reading that quote going, like, I don't think you understand that maybe he actually doesn't really enjoy this stuff.
Yeah, he said, let's shoot this piece of shit.
Let's shoot this piece of shit.
So funny.
That's hilarious.
And Mackie's like talking about it as like a positive thing.
Yeah, let's shoot this piece of shit.
He's everything a movie star should be. He would say, let's shoot this piece of set. And everybody was like, yeah, let's shoot this shit.
Jeez, I think he's completely misunderstood what he was saying.
Either that or Mackie's like paraphrased it.
Maybe.
All right, everyone. That's enough about Indiana Jones. We know what you're really here for. Courtroom drama. That's right. It's time to talk about Microsoft versus the FTC. You might say, Kerry, Jeremy, we've been hearing about this for weeks and days and months already. Why would we talk about this now? It's because it's finally, they had this trial. There were so many things that came out of it. There were conclusions to be drawn, but they finally came to one. Like the judge laid down a fine. They finalized the court case, and not only that, but Microsoft has then been making moves this week in the run up to tomorrow, I think the 18th of July, to get everyone else's concerns squared away before this deadline that they're running towards.
Yeah.
They've been talking about deals with Sony. They're talking about striking a different proposal with the CMA. So it's all popping off. We're going to go over the overall arcing threads of what's happened with the court case. We're also going to talk about some of the interesting news tidbits that came around. Like, hey, did you want to know how much Sony spent on The Last of Us Part 2? Well, good news.
It's too much.
They showed some poorly redacted documents, and we know exactly how much they spent on it. So we're going to go over all of that today in one comprehensive single package. If you're unfamiliar, this is minimap.com.au's weekly games podcast. That's our website where you can go find all things we've ever done Minimap. That's the occasional review. We've got op-eds, we've got podcasts and more podcasts up on that site. You can find it all there. The MiniMapCast goes live on all podcast platforms every Wednesday with 24 hours of early access given to our patrons. More on that in just a second. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to tell your friends. Give the show a positive rating wherever you listen to us, or if you're watching us on YouTube. It makes a huge difference, and it only takes a few seconds. If you want to get notified every time a new episode is released, you can follow us on social media. We are at MiniMapAU for the account name. That's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and also Twitch, where we are live every Monday night, 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for the live recording of the MiniMapCast. We always hang out with chat before and after and during. We'll talk about Kingdom Hearts, and there was something else in there in the pre-show. What else were we talking about? I was talking about Final Fantasy X a bit, but I think that was when no one was here. So you can come talk to me when the chat's filling up and no one's here yet. You come listen to me talk about Final Fantasy X. If that's not a draw card, I don't know what you want. We wanted to say thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv as the music for the MiniMapCast. You can listen to more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. And finally, Minimap is completely independent and funded almost entirely out of our own pockets. So if you'd like to help keep the mics and lights on, keep us trucking so we keep making stuff like this for you, you could support us by becoming one of our patrons. For only $5 a month, you get 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast, including some bonus features like the old press conference watch-alongs that we've done. We're going to be doing some more of those thanks to Danny O'Dwyer releasing some very high-quality footage of some old conferences. We're very excited about that. And yeah, you can find all of that over on patreon.com/minimapau. And remember, it's cheaper than a latte with oat milk. Jeremy, where do we begin?
At the beginning.
we begin at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, it's such an unwieldy topic, not only because this last 2 weeks has been so dense with all of the trial findings, but also because the preamble to this trial has taken nearly 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
We're not going to go back that far.
No.
But just know that
there's been enough of an influx of dense like events happening that we're mostly focusing on the past month. Yeah.
Maybe not even that far.
Look, I think where to start off with is like coming out of the news, most recent being that the judge has ruled in the favor of Microsoft.
Yep.
That the FTC will continue to appeal, but I think by and large we believe that it's not that they are not going to be able to get in the way of this deal happening anymore, or they get in the way of this deal not happening rather. It's all signs are pointing to now Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard King. How do you feel?
It's funny because like I think I was reading some of the like play-by-plays as like different things came out during the trial, and it seemed like the FTC had like some decent footing to stand on for a while.
Yeah.
And I finally considered for a moment that it might not go through.
Right.
Everyone was saying like the deal was so big, but also not quite big enough, so that it was like it's still a big deal, but not big enough for it to be completely dismissed. Like it'll go through for Microsoft. And so just to have that moment of like, oh, maybe not. And then it just happened anyway. It was like, oh, like I just kind of like snapped back to where I was like 2 weeks ago, like just waiting for the shoe to drop on this.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it, man. It's so big. It's such a big acquisition.
Yeah.
And it's going to Microsoft, which is like, okay, fine, but like, what if Microsoft's in a bit of a "what have you done for me lately" situation in my own head? Does that make sense?
Kind of.
It's like it's hard for me to be excited about them owning a bunch of games that I may or may not want to play. It's also hard for me to be excited about the particular companies they've bought. Activision, run by Bobby Kotick, the slimeball CEO of the century, and Blizzard, home of many and Activision as well, home of many terrible accusations against employees and about executives covering it up and having a terrible workplace culture. It's really hard to get behind any of it and feel good about any of it, personally, for me.
Oh, I mean,
How
like
about
Kotick is the CEO of all of the whole thing. He's the CEO of Activision and Blizzard.
Yeah, I know, but before they bought Blizzard had those problems,
I mean, they didn't buy Blizzard. They like merged with Blizzard, but they don't start and stop with Kotick, definitely.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, look, I think it's a bad thing. I think any deal that is this big is a bad thing. I think that there are plenty of people on the internet that are being far too blissfully ignorant and naive about deals like this. And I understand why some people will want to act this way. I think that it is an exciting thing to consider that a whole bunch of games that I don't currently have immediate access to play will be available on the thing that I am currently subscribed to, right? It's not like this is an example that is not going to happen, but the idea of Call of Duty yearly being on Game Pass day one, they've said this is not going to happen, but the idea of that is exciting to me as a consumer if I stick my head in the ground and cover my ears with dirt when I don't consider what that really means. And
Yeah,
I think
and
there's a
like
lot of
Activision Blizzard games, they're already so big, you're already getting them everywhere anyway. Like it's hard to see how them being owned by Microsoft does anything for that company in terms of their publishing power.
well, like, but like as someone who has bought one Call of Duty in like 8 years, 6 years,
Yeah.
being oh no, sorry, bought 2 Call of Duties in 10 years is what I know to have done. One of them being Ghost, the other one being the most recent Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
You bought Modern Warfare.
Oh, I did buy that. Someone who has barely played Call of Duty in the past 10 years, right? The idea of me being able to load it up on Game Pass and just be like, hey, I can play all of them. Like, that's like a cool thing. But none of this is worth the biggest companies getting bigger.
Yeah.
You know, like it throws my mind back to when Disney bought 20th Century Fox. And like my mind at that point as a like 17 or 18-year-old, however old I was back then, was like, hey, cool, the X-Men will be in the Marvel movies. And that's not like an inappropriate thing to consider at that moment as someone who is interested in that. But it like my head was in the sand of what that really meant at that point. I think that was one of like the worst things that could have happened to Hollywood. And we are still feeling the effects of that. There's a gigantic there is a very direct correlation between all of that happening and the current strike that is going on between the Screenwriters Guild, the SAG-AFTRA, and the rest of Hollywood. You know, like that would probably still be happening right now, but Bob Iger's out there talking about how, like, you know, this is ridiculous and all that stuff. Meanwhile, he's making $24 million a year with a $20 million bonus or whatever, you know, and that's happening because all of those streaming residuals that the workers are not getting, all of them from Fox that are on Disney Plus. That's all a Disney thing. That's all a decision made by Disney. That's not to say that Fox wouldn't have done the same, but it is definitely happening because of Disney. Yep. And so now looking ahead to this Microsoft thing, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to bigger companies buying, like big companies buying very, very big companies, right? Like it is worrying that if we don't know when it stops. I don't think that all of these companies are truthfully worth this money in terms of pushing the industry forward. This is a money buying money deal, right? There is no, we're buying this because we really want Call of Duty to be the best franchise ever. They are not buying this because they really want, you know, the World of Warcraft to be the number one MMO again with, you know, some of the most amazing content you've never seen before. This is like, no, we want to buy this because we want to make even more money than the $7.8 billion. Oh, sorry, the $70 billion that we're planning to spend on this company. Mm-hmm. And that is just that sucks. This is not a good thing. Anyone who cheers for this is a dickhead, and anyone that thinks that it's not going to be a big deal.
You were so tempered at the start. You were like, there are some people on the internet.
Yeah, I'm still calling them some people on the internet. But if anyone who is happy about this is a dickhead, and anyone who is happy that corporations are buying other corporations is also a dickhead, and anyone that thinks that nothing is going to change is also an ignorant dickhead. They don't do $70 billion to keep things the same. That's like, that is a moronic thing to believe. And if you believe like it, you're a moron.
With Bethesda, I mean, you don't buy Bethesda to not make at least some part of it exclusive to lock down those titles.
Exactly. You don't buy one of the biggest publishers in the world just to make their earnings your earnings. You buy them to do that, to make their earnings even bigger for your earnings, right?
Yeah.
You make changes. It's not like we don't live in a world where like, oh yes, now I buy you everything stays the same.
Exactly. But there's part of me that wants to see Xbox restart studios like Toys for Bob and was it Neversoft? What are the other ones? The ones who did Tony Hawk remake, Spyro remake, Crash remake.
What does that mean at this point, right? Like, it's just at that point, it's just a name. Like people who are working on those games, they don't stay on those like the moment like a studio, the moment a team works on a game like the Tony Hawk remake, then gets put on Call of Duty, like at that point.
A lot of those people are gone.
Yeah. Or have moved or shuffled, or that team doesn't exist in the way it was. Like, it's not like you can just say like, okay, now time for Tony Hawk 3 and 4. Like it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's just I like the idea of, because it sounded like all the teams who made those games were really passionate about them.
1000%.
And it was so sad to see them just folded into the machine, you know.
And it was happening, right? Like we know from Tony Hawk himself had said that there were plans to make Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remake 3 and 4. That was a thing that was happening at one point, and then at some point down the line, prior to you know the game coming out, they got shuffled across over to the Call of Duties. But like I also do hope that coming out of this, there is a world where Microsoft looks at this and goes like, okay, like let's actually rediversify some of this portfolio, so it's not just the 4 biggest games that are kind of mid. Like let's bring out some games that are like actually doing some really cool stuff. And I don't doubt that will happen, but that is not worth $70 billion of a deal to the for the industry, to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, what do you want to start with here first? Do you want to start with the news that we heard out of the courtroom to start with, or shall we come back to that as like a chaser?
I think that can be a chaser. I think.
I reckon so too. So we'll talk about we'll look at these sort of these turn of events that have kind of finished. Well, kind of paint the picture for what the field is looking at at the moment. So, Jeremy's brought in a number of articles here, which are very helpful. This first piece of context is from Ars Technica. Kyle Orland, the headline's saying, UK government blocks Microsoft's proposed Activision purchase. Government group says deal would, quote, substantially lessen competition in cloud gaming. This was in April. So this has been a few months ago now, but this has been, aside from this FTC trial, this has been the biggest roadblock for the deal.
Yeah.
It's basically the FTC in the UK, called the CMA, and so this still isn't resolved, and we'll talk about it a bit more in a little bit. But aside from the FTC trial, this has been the other hurdle, and this was not yet resolved, despite the conclusion of the FTC findings.
However, what the FTC findings, well, like what the result of the court case from the FTC resulted in, after the judge ruled in Microsoft's favor, was the CMA then announcing to Microsoft, okay, let's come to an agreement, let's come to a deal. They had paused negotiations at one point to begin the beginnings of a prosecution, while the FTC was also prosecuting Microsoft. And then the moment, like I think within 24 hours of the FTC losing that court case, the CMA said, okay, let's come to an agreement, because I think that as regulatory bodies in each of their respective countries, I think the CMA is not quite as perhaps strong in terms of, like, I guess, worldwide scale, that they don't believe that they will actually be able to stop the deal. And
the other thing is, they will have just seen like a dry run, essentially, for some of their arguments in court this week or this last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I think their focus on cloud gaming in general is not going to be enough to stop anything. Especially because Sarah Bond came out and said, like basically said we're losing money on our streaming technology. Like it costs more money to run than it is for us to than we're earning through it right now.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the streaming stuff in terms of like as an angle. Like I think it's interesting. I think it's a very specific angle that I think the CMA was looking at, like, okay, like this is maybe like a really new loophole, or like not a loophole, but like a new angle that is perhaps not the one that they were expecting, and maybe we were able to catch them on the back foot.
The thing is, then you walk into so much like, does the CMA know enough about that technology? Because like then you're looking at the FTC and like how sometimes it doesn't feel like they know specifically how they're trying to like make their claims that this is anti-competitive, because they're not experts in the field of video games. They're experts in the field of federal trade. They're, you know what I mean? Like all things monopolization and big business, but not what all of those businesses are dealing their business in. So, you know, the CMA then has to think, can we be skilled up enough on this to know what we're talking about for the whole subject, and then also block this entire deal for Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world, buying this whole other thing. And Microsoft could easily say, oh, you know, streaming is great, but it's also about this. It's about portfolio. It's about studio. It's about support for our other studios. And like, there's so many things they can point to that aren't cloud gaming for why they're making this purchase.
Yeah.
I don't even know if cloud gaming would have been a part of their idea as they made their purchase. Like no more than any other part.
Oh, like I think it is in terms of their broader goals as a
they could just say like, oh, if we bought them, that could go on streaming too, and everyone's like, yeah, and it's like that's it, you know, like
kinda.
Like there's no machinations there. It's like they have a streaming service, they buy games go on the streaming service.
Yes and no. I think that eventually they will make the case of like, you know, Call of Duty, stream it immediately. You don't even need a console. Don't even bother buying a PlayStation, because you don't even need to buy an Xbox. Kind of like it's right here for you right now. Sort of like they will make that case at some point. But it's because, you know, there was something that has now just re-entered my brain after the influx of information that we've been going through over the past like hour, but even just over the past 2 weeks of that other Call of Duty project.
Oh.
Vamp while I try and find out so I can actually talk about what I think.
What I'll do is I'll read a statement from Brad Smith. Who is Brad Smith? Brad Smith is the vice chair and president of Microsoft. And so this is to talk to what you were saying before, Jeremy, about as soon as the FTC trial was closed, you know, they came out with a statement towards how they were going to move forward with the CMA. So this is what Brad Smith had to say on Twitter in a neat little picture. After today's court decision in the US, our focus now turns back to the UK. While we ultimately disagree with the CMA's concerns, we are considering how the transaction might be modified in order to address those concerns in a way that is acceptable to the CMA. In order to prioritize work on these proposals, Microsoft and Activision have agreed with the CMA that a stay of the litigation in the UK would be in the public interest, and the parties have made a joint submission to the Competition Appeal Tribunal to this effect. So they've realized they don't have enough time for this date they're running towards, and they're working out a deal to amend things to come to a compromise by everyone's terms, by the sounds of it. Which is funny. It's funny that like one pillar of this like resistance fell, and the CMA is like, all right, we just got to make the best of this that we can. You know, they're kind of like gracefully backing down as publicly like doable as possible, I guess, is like acceptably as possible.
Yeah, and yes and no in terms of like, you know, like the EU had already approved the deal going through, as did Brazil.
Oh, a number of other regulatory bodies had too. It's like 14 other regulatory bodies, isn't there?
I don't know how many there are, but there's quite a few, and like at least from the outset, like, you know, as you know, just some guy who doesn't know a whole lot about the strength of regulatory bodies, my impression was always the EU was one of the toughest in terms of like,
Well, like litigation.
Yeah, well, just in terms of like anti just laws. Often, anytime any tech stuff comes out of like, got forced to change X by regulatory body, it always seems to be from the EU. And so like,
right, like the USB-C thing for Apple.
Yeah, totally. Great example.
Yeah.
Like the EU allowing it to go through and the CMA stopping it was like okay, like, so here you go in kind of in a way.
So what was this thing that you found about the other Call of Duty?
I can't find it. I don't know if I'm just merging things in my brain.
Was it about them talking about the difference between Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty Warzone?
No, that was a specific thing that I thought I remembered, but I must just be misremembering. Just ignore what I said before. Okay.
No worries. So, the FTC deal closed. They're dealing with the CMA. This next article, back to Ars Technica and Kyle Orland again. The headline here is FTC appeal in Microsoft Activision case shows US regulator isn't giving up yet. But stopping the deal from moving forward still looks like an uphill battle. So yeah, they were coming back. The FTC were coming back for an appeal. That's right. So I'll just read the first paragraph here. The Federal Trade Commission has given legal notice that it intends to appeal a recent district court decision that denied a temporary injunction in Microsoft's proposed merger with Activision Blizzard. The appeal notice filed with the 19th, whatever, is a rare move for the FTC in cases like this. Facing down District Court Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley's finding that the regulator has not shown a likelihood it will prevail on its claim this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. So, yeah, the judge said it's not looking good, and the FTC is specifically appealing that claim, which would be an uphill battle because it would bring that judge's decision-making process into question, and then all of a sudden you've got the judge on the defensive as well as the people that you're trying to stop from merging. I don't know enough about the specifics of the courtroom to know how that goes, but it is interesting to note that they did pretty immediately come back with an intent to appeal.
Yeah, I think that they, like, at the very least, even if they knew they were not going to win the next appeal, they needed to at least maintain the appearance of, keeping pressure, I guess.
And that goes to something I've heard just with people talking about this, that, the FTC has sort of an appearance to uphold that they're doing their job by making these claims, right? It isn't necessarily a problem if they go to court and lose, so long as they're fighting to make sure that things like this aren't happening, in case they would, fall through the cracks otherwise. It's part of their job to just make an effort, I guess, is what the people are saying.
Yeah.
So then we go to the New York Times by Kellen Browning, David McCabe, and Karen Weiss. Do you have the headline for this article, Jeremy?
The New York Times one.
Mm-hmm.
Judge rejects FTC delay of $70 billion Microsoft Activision deal.
Okay. So, a federal judge on Tuesday ruled against the Federal Trade Commission's attempt to delay Microsoft's $70 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard, setting the stage for the tech giant and the video game publisher to merge as soon as this month. Wow. In a 53-page decision, Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley of U.S. District Court of the Northern District of California said the FTC had failed to show it was likely to prove the merger would result. This is the thing I read just before. She denied the FTC's request for a preliminary injunction, which would have delayed the deal's closing until after the agency could fight it in an internal court. So yeah, that's just the result of the FTC's case being shut down, I guess, is that injunction for them to do a bit more work to block the deal was blocked in the first place. So they didn't even get past that first hurdle of, hey, give us more time for us to make a proper case on this.
Yeah.
The FTC can still come back against Microsoft in this case, but apparently it's much stickier and much harder once the merger happens for them to make a claim for it to have not happened and then have to unentangle everyone's finances and pull them apart.
Yeah, in order to break apart a company is a very tricky. You have to prove like monopolistic like stuff. Like I don't. It's really difficult to do. Like the one that comes to mind recently is like the Time Warner Discovery, AT&T, like all of that getting disassembled was like a fucking mess for everybody.
Yeah.
And while I think it is an overall good thing that it happened, it's like, oh geez, what a like, maybe it's like this shouldn't have happened to begin with. But like, and you know, like it's also difficult because like they are slow. Governments move at like glacial speeds, you know, like you can't.
And we're talking about companies of this size and dealings of this size and companies that own companies that own companies. Like it has to be. The scale is just so large. It's, you know, you can't move a ship that large any faster than that.
Yeah. Kerry, just before we continue, did you get a copy of the other companies that Microsoft was contemplating acquiring?
Oh, I didn't get that.
Right, I'll get that while you
forget about that one.
I'll get that while you read the new. I'll read the next bit.
Yeah. Do that. So Jeremy's posted another bit of context here. This is from June 15th, and it was how the judge, who was Jacqueline Scott Corley, issued a temporary restraining order blocking Microsoft's long-planned acquisition of Activision, pending the hearings that then happened last couple of weeks. Jeremy, do we know if that restraining order was removed?
Sorry, I don't.
I don't either. It's funny. I assume so. I assume it was like, hey, we've got a restraining order for you. You can't move forward on this until we have the results of this hearing of this court case. I assume that was all this was for, in case it ran long or something. I assume that with the court case having gone through and the injunction not being upheld, that this restraining order will be let go. Or if it's not let go already. I mean, the deal happens in a day or two now, so
yeah.
I imagine it's gone.
I would assume the same.
And that brings us neatly to the news that came today from Phil Spencer.
Yeah.
Which was fascinating. A Sunday, middle of the Sunday their time, or start of a Sunday.
And tweeted from the Phil Spencer personal Twitter account as opposed to from the Microsoft account. Like it wasn't on. At least at that point, it was on Xbox Wire. Like there was no press release instant at that moment. It was just like Phil had this in his drafts, and as he left the meeting, like hit send on his phone from his pocket, kind of deal.
And that's, that fosters that sense of like, oh, I'm a man of the people, and I'm a gamer too. Pardon me. I was really trying to fight through that.
Yeah.
Anyway, he tweeted today, "We are pleased to announce that Microsoft and PlayStation have signed a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation following the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. We look forward to a future where players globally have more choice to play their favorite games," which with Call of Duty makes no sense because it's already everywhere. Yeah, this is fascinating because, part of the FTC's trial and claims and arguments was that, Sony thinks this isn't going to be good and they're backing up our claim that we don't think it's going to be good. They were sort of simpatico in this trial. But it's weird to see them have this is what I said before about how everyone was coming together like Xbox was making moves to do a deal with the CMA, to do a deal with to do a deal with PlayStation, to finish these hurdles, because PlayStation was really the only company that didn't want to do this, because they signed that 10-year deal of like there will be games on Nintendo systems for 10 years from the Call of Duty franchise. They signed that agreement.
Yeah.
And then now we get this really nondescript. Microsoft and PlayStation have signed a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Like, for how long? Like, just the main games? Also Warzone? Is it all of the franchise? Will it be like it's really strange? Will it be cheaper to buy Call of Duty on Xbox than it is on PlayStation? Like there's so many questions we don't have answered to that, but I just love the idea that, again, it's that same idea of like one of these pillars of resistance fell away and these other ones are sort of having to just make the best of the situation now that they can't all hold it up together, including PlayStation, including the CMA.
There's still no press release on Xbox Wire or in Microsoft's news portal. Like there's no details about this, and I'm
not surprised because it's the middle of the weekend.
But also, I actually don't think that either of them really want to sort of let out what kind of deal they might have made. I don't think that either of them have any interest in divulging what that was.
Yeah, maybe it was actually just like a really frank discussion and like. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
maybe they both got something out of it but like they can't go to the public after having been so oppositional and be like, we've made this great beneficial deal for gamers. Like Sony can't say that.
Like neither of them can say like, hell yeah, like we're both getting like $800 million for the next 10 years, you know, like look at us.
Yep.
Because realistically, that's what that is. You know, like I remember like the first thing I said when I posted that deal was like Sony got paid, and I said paid in all caps. Yeah. And that's because this deal is going to make both of them just a ginormous amount of money.
Yeah.
And like, look, it's good that that Call of Duty is not just on one platform. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, it's like there are no underdogs in this story.
No, exactly. We're talking about two of the biggest games publishers and console manufacturers in the world owning one of, if not the biggest gaming franchise in the world. Like it's so it's so strange. Yeah. So very bizarre. It'll be interesting to see what happens come the 17th in the States, whether we see one of those Xbox graphics of, you know, there's Price standing next to the Richard Ayoade and the car from Forza, and you know what I mean, like the studio announcements. Standing next to Doom Guy and
the character
Dragonborn.
Yeah, the key art character, fucking Marvel Slate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'll probably happen at some point.
And like Ninja Theory releases like Senua and Master Chief and Lilith from Diablo like fan art, but it was just like the social team. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's they do all of the Merry Christmas from. Yeah, Blizzard Activision King, and it's like, Master Chief and the fucking Candy Crush guy.
Yeah, that weird dude. I forgot about the dude. I was just gonna say they were just eating candy.
Just eating Candy Crush, yeah. God.
Someone's mouth is exploding because they got the freckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great. You know?
No, it's like I feel like there's like a layer of like filth.
Yeah, like nothing's happened, but it feels worse.
Yeah.
Like nothing is going to change immediately, but it feels worse.
Yeah. But like also we know that stuff is going to change relatively.
Oh yeah, not to say stuff won't change.
Yeah.
Just like
do you remember when the Bethesda deal went through? And how soon it was after that a whole like slate of Bethesda games came to Game Pass.
Yeah.
And
then like 3 months later, Deathloop launched exclusively on PS5.
Yeah. Like we know that not every Activision Blizzard game is going to be on Game Pass because they have said that, like, you know, to uphold to stop the monopoly that they can just easily do by the click of a button, they can't just add all the old Call of Duties to Xbox Game Pass. And I think that they also don't exactly want to at this moment because they still sell a lot of copies.
Yeah. I mean, Activision's one of those companies and will still be under Microsoft as one of those companies that will not reduce the price of their games by any more than 50%.
Yeah.
And like all of the Call of Duties stay at a really high price for a long time.
Yeah. But we'll get, you know, the Crash Bandicoots on Game Pass. We'll get Spyro on Game Pass. We'll get...
Maybe Sekiro finally.
Yeah, maybe Sekiro finally. I'm not sure where the rights are, but I'm pretty sure they're with Activision. Like there will be a whole bunch of games that'll get thrown onto Game Pass. That'll just be somewhat sobering, I think.
Mm-hmm.
because that also means that, you know, like we said before, like we know that at that point Kotick got paid, and we don't know if they're gonna kick him out immediately or not. He obviously wanted this to happen. Like, you know, he
well, yeah, because they went with the deal in the first place.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. But like, you know, he owns a lot of stock. He's going to get a lot of money. I hope they kick him out, but they're not going to.
But even if they do, I mean, I remember someone saying this, like he's got, even if they kick him out, he's going out with a golden parachute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
There is no justice that man will see. There is no.
He is making personally hundreds of millions of dollars with this deal.
Yes. And he will not see what he deserves. Right? Like he'll be fine, which is one of the greatest shames of
more than fine. He'll be fucking continuously stinking rich.
Yeah.
More rich. Yeah. So, I think what we'll do now is we'll throw it to a break, and when we come back, we haven't been playing too much this week. So what we'll do when we come back, we'll talk about some of the very interesting news details that came out from the trial, some of the random bits of context about the industry, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we've been playing before wrapping up. So stick around. We're going to go to a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the MiniMapCast. We've been discussing climbing and microphones, and that's about it. It's been a short break. Short one, but a good one. Guess what, everybody? We're going back to the courtroom.
Yeah.
You thought you escaped,
Objection!
but no.
I should have got the Ace Attorney objection sound effect.
I've never really had any appeal to play those games, you know?
There are a lot of games that you don't have any interest in, I find. From a never trying a point of view.
I mean, I'm not never trying it. It just doesn't sing to me. It's just I hear it and people say it's good, and I look at it. I'm like, meh.
But if you haven't tried it, how do you know?
I guess I don't.
I'm gonna pitch you a series that I actually did want to do at one point, but I don't know. It sounds like an absolute nightmare to do.
Okay, great.
And like I do want to do it one day, but like I don't know when it'll happen. Because it is so difficult to do. But I have wanted to like do an entire series where I pretend to be like you're Rocky and I'm the coach, and I get you to play like every genre of video game.
Oh. Okay.
And like,
so it'd be fighting games, driving games.
Yeah. All of them, right? Like immersive sims.
Platformers.
Yeah, like 2D platformers, 3D platformers, Castlevania games, Metroidvania games rather. You know, like 4X games, grand strategy games, RTS, space sim, flight sim, driving sim. Like,
what would be your role as the coach?
To tell you the history and to like basically. Because I'm
yell at me when I get stuck,
and then we will have a battle, and because I'm better at you than in every video game, you will have to beat me. That last bit's
are
just
you?
funny.
Is that the consensus?
No, I don't. I have no idea. I have no idea. But it would be funny if you had to go up against me as someone who had more experience in more genres than you.
That would be funny. That does sound very funny and very silly
and very difficult to put together.
Not very difficult, just some work.
Massive time though, like huge amounts of time, because we would both have to play a tremendous amount of games.
Yeah, but me playing it I assume for the first time would be on camera, right? And then I'd be done.
No. I'm not saying you play it like for 2 hours and then you're done. Like you like go to get good at it.
Oh,
not like, you know, for months, but like over a week, you like drill into a game.
Yeah, that sounds way less appealing. I thought it was just like sit me down in the chair and yell at me for a couple of hours and we record the whole thing.
No. I mean, as in like you spend like a week in the world of driving sims.
Oh,
see, to me that sounds so great.
It's a good idea. That's just so much time of me potentially playing something that I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of that.
But you don't even want to find out. You don't even want to know.
It's not like I'm going to get paid for it.
Yeah, but you know this business.
You suffer for your art.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex wants to be the co-host. That's a good idea. All right. Anyway, back to the courtroom, everybody. We're going to go through some of the random bits and bobs that have come out of this court case. So it should be said, we gathered a lot of these from Tom Warren's daily sum ups of each day in court. Tom Warren at The Verge did an excellent job cataloging everything, as did the other reporters. I know Rebecca Valentine has done awesome work covering the trial. So shout outs to them. But it's funny because this first detail was from the first day of the trial, but it's interesting context for what we last spoke about, which was Microsoft striking a deal with PlayStation to keep Call of Duty on their consoles. So this headline, Tom Warren, June 23rd, says, Sony's PlayStation chief privately said Microsoft's Activision deal wasn't about Xbox exclusives. I've jumped to the first paragraph here to part of the email. Quote, it's not an exclusivity play at all, said Ryan. They're thinking bigger than that, and they have the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a fair amount of time with both Phil Spencer, Bobby Kotick, over the past days, and I'm pretty sure we will continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for many years to come, unquote. The surprise revelation runs counter to Sony's arguments against Microsoft's Activision Blizzard deal and its filings with regulators. Sony has maintained it fears Microsoft could make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox or even sabotage the PlayStation versions of the game. Which is fascinating. It's just fascinating to see like those inner emails between executives about the big things, about these big things, but about what they really think when said to each other.
Yeah, and it's
especially given their public speech of being.
Yeah, it reminds me of a good long while ago. There was a lot of leaked emails from the Sony Pictures team. When when they were leading into like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 and stuff, there was like a whole lot of leaked emails.
Yeah,
about,
a long time ago. Is that the same time as the interview?
Yeah. It was to do with like North Korea and all that stuff. And there were a ton of leaked emails from way back then. And yeah, it is interesting to see the decisions get made in a like to get a snapshot of the real-time decisions being made. Is really fascinating. Like, and just last week, in the post show that we did for the MiniMapCast, we went through a whole bunch of like a database of leaked Sega documents.
Yes.
Which was
Jeremy, was that only last week?
I think so.
That feels like a month ago.
It feels like forever ago, doesn't
it? I'm not okay with that. Let's move on. But I'm just gonna have a little existential crisis over here. Okay.
Should I go into, speaking of emails, should I go into the companies Microsoft considered acquiring, Kerry?
Yes, I'd love to go over this list because I heard of it sort of circumspect, just like briefly as headlines and stuff like that. But yeah, as part of Discovery and Files, they found this list of the top 100 companies that Xbox could consider purchasing, or Microsoft could consider purchasing for Xbox.
Yeah, so there was that. So this list is actually a little bit more specific than that. So this is again from Tom Warren of The Verge. An article that is titled "Microsoft considered buying Bungie, Sega to bolster Xbox Game Pass internal emails show."
Did you say to bolster?
To bolster.
To bolster.
Yeah. To bolster Xbox Game Pass internal emails show. The article goes, Microsoft was looking to acquire both Bungie and Sega, according to internal documents from the FTC/Microsoft hearing. In an email seen by The Verge, Xbox chief Phil Spencer wrote to both Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Microsoft CFO Amy Hood, requesting a strategy approval to approach Sega Sammy over a potential acquisition of its Sega gaming studios. Quote, we believe Sega has built a well-balanced portfolio of games across segments with global geographic appeal and will help us accelerate Xbox Game Pass both on and off console, said Spencer in the November 2020 email. And that they share a screenshot of the email, and it includes there's about 15 people in this email CC'd and just directly emailed to. People that have got subtitles such as Corp Dev, Sarah Bond is in this email, Matt Booty is in this email. So like all the big Xbox wigs are in this email. He goes on to say it's not clear what happened with the Sega acquisition and whether Nadella ultimately approved talks, but in a Microsoft internal April 2021 merger review, Sega was still listed as a key target. Inside of this Microsoft confidential document that is been made public through this deal, there's a couple of merger and acquisition final watch list companies that are listed here. They list 3 columns. There's the gap, there's the company, and there's the assets related to the company. So the gap here. So gap is audience expansion. So what they are filling.
What they would gain.
Yeah. Like the hole that they are filling with by buying this company. So under audience expansion, they have the companies Thunderful, which is a publisher. Supergiant. Obviously the maker of Hades, Bastion Empire, Niantic, the creators of Pokemon Go, Playtrix, which is a studio I'm not as familiar with.
Playtrix.
Sorry, Playrix.
Playrix, yeah, is one of the top 3 mobile gaming companies in the world according to their website.
Okay, what games are they? Do they own? Are they like Clash of Clans?
In Serbia games. What is it? It's Gardenscapes, Homescapes, Fishdom, Township.
Yeah, right. Yeah, those are just
Mana Matters.
Gardenscapes.
Fishdom Solitaire.
Gardenscapes. It's a good game. I'm like level 300 and something in Gardenscapes. I play a lot of Gardenscapes, and the final one under audience expansion is Zynga.
Right.
This is I would assume.
Who bought them recently? Was it
Tencent?
Gearbox? Take-Two? Tencent,
I believe, or at least have a majority stake in them. I'm not sure when that was, and I'm not sure how much.
Take-Two completes $12.7 billion acquisition of mobile games giant Zynga.
When was that?
23rd of May, 22.
Right,
so
okay.
A year ago.
So after this, definitely after this.
Yep.
They have a second table with the same columns, which is the gap for engagement and social interaction and audience expansion. There are 3 companies listed here. There is Scopely, which is the asset they have listed under Scopely is very strong tech infrastructure to support non-owned IP and opportunity to complement Xbox Game Studios IP.
You want to hear their tagline from their slug on their SEO?
Boy, do I.
Scopely is expanding the possibilities of play through game experiences that aim to inspire community connection, competition, and capitals now, play every day.
Yeah, right. So like a live ops studio. The other 2 in this table are Bungie and IO Interactive.
Oh, okay.
So
social interaction through IO Interactive. That's
engagement and social interaction and audience expansion. The asset they have listed for IO Interactive is owner of AAA franchises with specialized expertise in regional IP game launches.
Okay.
And the asset they have for Bungie is owner of AAA franchises with an established ability to ship and scale games, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I think that there are other companies that they had listed as considered acquisition targets. I
remember it was interesting that Square Enix didn't show up, right?
I think they did, but I think it was like there were a handful of lists, and a lot of like at the end of the day, I think if you look through those lists, every single company was on there. Nintendo was on there. Sony Interactive Entertainment was on a list. as a
Yep,
potential,
yep.
as a should we like what would it take for us to look at acquiring Sony Interactive Entertainment?
Yeah, big pie in the sky, big moves.
Yeah, but one of the lists which looked a little bit more refined included Bungie, CD Projekt Red, Certain Affinity, Crytek, 4A, Digital Extremes, From Software, Gearbox, Hello Games, IO Interactive, Larian Studios, People Can Fly, Remedy Entertainment, Starbreeze, Supergiant Games, Techland, 505 Games, Focus Home Interactive, Paradox Interactive, Sega. So it's like, there's a lot of they were looking around and seeing what was going to fit their portfolio, seeing what was going to really build them up.
It's funny because looking at those, none of those have the highs that Activision Blizzard King offer them, I don't think. You know what I mean?
No, totally. But this was also, it's not that it was in the age where they were looking at studios like Playtonic and looking at Playdead, right? But they bought a bunch of smaller studios at the same time as they were buying big ones, right? They went out and bought these are still big studios, but Ninja Theory, Team Ninja, whatever one, the
Ninja Theory,
Ninja Theory, which had only made a handful of games. And some of, while Obsidian was a really good get, they weren't, Obsidian of 8 years ago. They were they're a different feeling company now. They feel a bit more small scale. Whereas, buying a Supergiant fits in that realm.
Yeah, it's like a Double Fine or a Theory. Yeah, as you said, that makes sense.
It's fascinating though.
It's very fascinating. I mean, all of these feel like that. It's like, oh, this is what it's actually like. This is how they made these decisions. This is how they talk about this. It's good, I think, for the health of the industry for us to know this stuff. So something else we found out on the first day of the trial, when Pete Hines was on the stand, at some point, as looking at Tom Warren's article, it wasn't particularly clear how this was revealed, but it was revealed that Microsoft made Starfield and Redfall exclusive to the Xbox platform after the acquisition was slated. For Bethesda once the acquisition happened. So yeah, they're looking at the Bethesda Microsoft deal was quite the way to sort of template, be like, oh, you did this with Bethesda, why wouldn't you do this with Activision? And so yeah, it was very fascinating to see that and know that for certain. It wasn't confirmed where Starfield would launch before the acquisition went through. It wasn't confirmed where Redfall would be before the acquisition went through. But knowing that they were going to be on PlayStation and are no longer because of this deal is good to know outright.
Yeah. Do you have a link to some of the emails that are there? Because it was funny hearing the language, because there was 2 emails that were going around. There was one sent to, I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't Phil Spencer, and there was one sent to Phil Spencer that were similar emails and just used very deliberate language in each of them.
From Pete Hines, you mean?
From Pete Hines.
Yeah, the wrap up I was looking at didn't go into those, but yeah, I do remember reading that Pete Hines was miffed that these decisions were being made, that the games that he was responsible for marketing and stuff like that were being kind of just pulled from platforms.
Yeah, so it says here, Hines said in one of the emails,
Call of Duty wouldn't be pulled, and they were like, why won't it be pulled? We had to pull out all of our stuff.
Yeah, so he says, and there's a quote from the email. Did anyone at Xbox think about giving us a heads up on this? Todd's going to DICE in a couple of days. Todd Howard is going to DICE in a couple of weeks. Do you think a journo might find him and press him on why the below is okay for Call of Duty, or why any Activision Blizzard game, but not for the Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield? It was funny. It was just interesting to see a lot of those decisions also get made after the fact, and this happens all the time when one company buys another. They say one thing and then you get told to do another, because hey baby, that's the business. And so it was,
and also they stopped running it by literally everyone in the chain.
Yeah, at some point
that was a decision above Pete's head.
Yes. Yep. It's fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you for looking that up. It's good context. So this is another little tidbit we got here, pulling again from Tom Warren's work. This is about when Phil Spencer was on the stand. Quote, quoting from the article, later in the day, Spencer was then asked about Xbox targets. Quote, so your business is not necessarily meeting its internal targets today, right? Asked the FTC's lawyer. Spencer then admitted it is not right now, no. Today, with the majority of our business residing as the third place console business, we are not a robust business. So that was just in general to their business in practice. But the next paragraph reads on, but just 2 weeks ago, Spencer revealed gaming revenue at Microsoft is double what it was in the Xbox 360 era in a behind closed doors presentation after its Xbox Games Showcase.
Yeah.
Spencer also said at that presentation that Xbox has more players than ever, and Microsoft is expecting $1 billion in PC gaming revenue this year. So the Xbox business is in pretty good shape, but Microsoft clearly has some even bigger targets. It's that classic thing of like, you know, how much is how big is too big? Like how much is enough?
Yeah.
Even though they are expanding and they are doing better than they have in the past, like they have such lofty targets, and which makes sense because they've been spending money like motherfuckers for the last 3, 4, 5 years.
I've got something on that because there seems to be something floating around that they're going to retire the Xbox Live brand over the next few days. That the Xbox Live brand is no longer going to exist, and it's going to become a thing called Xbox Game Pass Core, which is the same. It's the same. Okay. It's going to be the exact same thing.
It'll be PlayStation Plus Essential.
It is exactly that. They're going to retire the games for gold, and you're going to get a smaller batch of games to play, as opposed to monthly games that get added to your account. You keep all the old ones.
Plus online multiplayer access.
Yes, plus online multiplayer access, but not Game Pass, because that is a different tier, right? What that means is that they can... And anybody that has like Xbox Live Gold currently will then just get thrown on a new plan, costs the same, features are equivalent, depending on how you feel about the really quite dire games for gold showing things for forever. But it costs the same.
Maybe they'll just pick a rotating list of like 5 games out of Game Pass instead of...
Yeah, like we don't know how they're going to do it, but like that's basically the gist of it. What that means really is that they can then look at that month and say, "Hey, look at all of our new Xbox Game Pass subscribers." That's a growth that's a growth mindset, ain't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then they could talk about, you know, monthly active users and yep. Since the release of Xbox Game Pass Core, we've seen an uptick in Game Pass subscribers of
very, very, very data minded, and like, you know, to anyone who has Xbox Live at the moment is going to go like, I don't give a shit, like whatever.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, totally. Like Live and like Xbox Live Gold there's such holdovers from a bygone era that it could be completely overshadowed by Game Pass the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
It's been funny to see it just disappear into the background. And honestly, it's not a terrible thing. You know, Sony had to revamp their PS Plus to keep up with Game Pass, and now Game Pass is kind of keeping up with itself. They made their own thing redundant. Yeah. So going on to our next point, so this is while Phil Spencer was on the stand still. Reading from Tom Warren's article, Spencer revealed that Sony regularly pays competitors to, quote, skip our platform, and Microsoft felt it needed to own Bethesda to compete. Sony made the decision... and then this is... So that's its own thing there. That is funny that stipulation of, you know, we'll pay you to be on our system and specifically pay you to not be on other people's systems. Like that's a different way than you hear it happening for like ID at Xbox, right? Where that's like, we'll pay you to launch here, or we'll pay you to launch on Game Pass. It never really seems to be a directly combative, you will not launch there. I mean, maybe it is. We just didn't hear that in this case. We don't know that necessarily, but
well, like,
it
yeah, like I
does
think,
seem particularly anti-competitive.
and I think it's interesting as well because like what they usually do with ID at Xbox is like they target smaller games. You know, they target smaller studios that could realistically use the money. And yeah, like I think that the exclusivity that PlayStation usually does, it's very rarely smaller stuff. It is more often than not Deathloop, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, or things like Stray and Chia and
Yeah, which are
Humanity,
which are smaller but are not you know,
they're like AA small.
Yeah,
like, people who made Humanity made Tetris Effect Connected. Like they made money on that.
Yeah, it's not a Cuphead, for example, where they're like they're looking for a smaller studio. Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 being another one, right? It's like for them, it's like keeping up business decisions with other very large corporations as opposed to like looking for smaller teams.
Yep. So going on, it looks like, Jeremy, so we pulled this. This was about dev kits. Was this was
yeah, so
who was speaking here? Because we've got a quote. But
so this was Jim Ryan talking about how they were not they were trusting the studios that were owned by Xbox less because like specifically with hardware dev kits because
and speaking as to why Minecraft doesn't have a PS5 exclusive or a PS5 updated version of Minecraft yet.
Yeah, so during the development of the PlayStation 5, they didn't give Mojang PS5 dev kits because they were owned by Microsoft, and they didn't want the hardware information, the baseline specs, all of that stuff to be handed over to a studio that was owned by Microsoft, because that information then would have made its way to Microsoft, and there is an argument to be made that they would have gained an unfair advantage by understanding what the direct competitors' hardware specifications were going to be at a time where they are like things are not final, and at a time where they are just hoping to get games on the platform, for example.
Yeah. And I think honestly it's a decent discussion to have in terms of like, you know, the other teams don't necessarily know what cards we're holding. Totally. When they're launching consoles, especially when they're launching them not only in the same month, but literally like 2 days away from each other, like they did this console cycle.
Yeah.
It's valuable to hold on to that.
And so the quote here is, the development kits allow developers to have visibility and to work on the feature set that our new console will deploy. Delaying dev kits would typically mean a developer may bring its content to the new platform later than there would otherwise be the case. The commercial risk associated with the knowledge of these feature sets leaking to our principal competitor is not something we'd rely on any contract to enforce. That's from Jim Ryan.
Right. So saying like we could sign a contract that they couldn't say these secrets, but
we don't
those contracts aren't strong enough to mitigate the potential of those contracts being breached. Yeah. It's an interesting point.
Yeah. There's another one here again from Jim Ryan, just talking to his conversation with Bobby Kotick about the acquisition prior to everything happening. The quote from Jim Ryan is, "I told him, him being Bobby Kotick, that I thought the transaction was anti-competitive. I hoped that the regulators would do their job and block it." Which I think is a funny, like, and like Jim Ryan wasn't in he was unfortunately not in person for this to happen.
Yeah, it was recorded, wasn't there, or a deposition or something?
There was a deposition that was happening, but he was also, I think, via teleconference, I want to say, because Microsoft is asking him questions, unless all of that was done ahead of time. I'm not too sure.
I was under the impression that was recorded ahead of time.
Okay,
maybe I'm mistaken.
I'm not super clear on it. But I thought that was just a fun kind of jab of like telling the regulators to do their job as if this is the correct thing to do. Because it realistically it is the correct thing to do, but like in my opinion,
that's not why he's saying it. He's saying it because he loses.
Yeah, but also I think it's like that is a thing that you hear often is that like anyone who is a watcher of Succession, for example, will know the idea of letting a government entity do their job to allow things to happen, right? Like it is.
Yeah, please allow our gigantic business to continue to make billions of dollars.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There was another, and this was a back and forth. This next one was a back and forth between Microsoft lawyers and Jim Ryan. Microsoft saying, "Do you think it would be better if Microsoft kept Activision games on PlayStation?" Jim Ryan said, "Yes, I do." Microsoft then said, "Do you believe it is in Microsoft's best interest to make Activision games available on multiple platforms?" Ryan says, "No, I don't agree with that." Microsoft then says, "If you're running Xbox, would you recommend making Call of Duty and other Activision games exclusive to Xbox and PC?" Jim Ryan said, "That's a hypothetical question that I don't wish to answer."
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft said, "So you don't get to answer." Ryan then said, "I don't have enough knowledge to answer that question," which I think is also funny because I think that he and everybody knows if they were swapped.
Especially with PlayStation's mentality this last 3-5 years.
Yeah, like if their positions were swapped, of course he would be making the same decisions because at the end of the day, both of them are CEOs, and a CEO has a legal obligation to the company to make the best decisions financially for the company and their stake and shareholders.
Oh, more than that, to make sure their business continues to grow. They have an obligation to make sure their business grows. More than like does their best, like their business has to continue growing.
Yeah.
Contractually.
Yeah. Like there's nothing really too much to read into this part of aside from it's funny seeing that kind of talk. Mostly just from people that you and I talk about often.
Totally.
Because we often talk about, these people in terms of E3 conferences and like
very polished presentations.
And it's funny because like we often think about some of these people as, like gigantic business people, and they are, but like, I've said like I have exchanged a word with Phil Spencer once, right? Like, that like they're not impossible to reach. They're around.
And they are people.
Yeah. Like Phil Spencer came to Melbourne 6 years ago. And
really? I don't know that I've heard this.
What? Weren't you there? He did a talk at Acme.
Oh, I didn't go to that.
Oh, yeah. I went to it and
what'd you say? Nice haircut?
No, because I got there like earlier than everyone else, and so I saw him when he showed up, and I was like, "Hello," and he said hello back to me, and then after the thing, he just hung around, and anyone was asking him questions and stuff, which was. It's weird to think about that now.
Yeah, that's neat.
Like I could have stopped this from happening. I could have said something to him.
Oh, I thought you were going more sinister of that for a minute.
No, Jesus.
Sorry, I was just thinking of the Beatles last week. Sorry.
Yeah, no, like these people are not impossible to reach. They are also still just people, but also these are people who are in charge of billion-dollar companies.
I love the questions that Microsoft's lawyers ask in this, saying, do you think it would be better if Microsoft kept Activision games on PlayStation? Like, would be better. That's such an open-ended question. Of course he thinks it's better. It's better for him.
Yeah,
but also that next one.
Lawyer.
So you do believe it's in Microsoft's best interest to make Activision games available on multiple platforms? And Ryan says, no, I don't agree with that. He doesn't think it's in Microsoft's interests to keep Activision games available everywhere.
I think as a whole, you can make that case. When as a whole you include Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Because obviously this deal that they have agreed with, they've both agreed to earlier today, means that they both have a vested interest in keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And and since this intent to acquire, Microsoft has also said with Activision, we also intend to include Nintendo in the shares of Call of Duty, remember? So like there is intent to bring Call of Duty everywhere because it just makes a boatload of money. Mm-hmm. Nintendo obviously will not be unhappy with this either because they like
money.
Yeah, they like money.
And if the game runs badly, it's not their system's fault.
Yeah, and if the game runs badly, it'll be like some of their other first-party titles. They don't fucking care anyway. But yeah, it is fascinating that they are that I think Jim can actually make this case, saying like, I think it is not in Microsoft's best interest to keep Call of Duty on Xbox, because realistically, the money they make from putting it everywhere is worth it.
Yeah, totally. And they don't want to lose that for the franchise, and PlayStation doesn't want to lose that for their business.
Yeah.
So let's get to the funniest one here. So Sony submitted some documents to court, and these redacted documents, these documents had redacted details in them, and these documents were then scanned and then presented in the courtroom. The way they redacted these documents was just with a Sharpie or something that was not strong enough to keep the words from being displayed through a scan. So all of the things that were meant to be secret in these documents were not. Tom Warren had a really brief, succinct sum up at the top of his thing about this, but he says, it looks like someone redacted the documents with a black Sharpie, but when you scan them in, it's easy to see some of the redactions. Oops. The court has scrambled to remove the document, but the damage is done. Reporters and Sony's competition have already downloaded all the documents while they were in the public domain. Among other things, the document shows that Horizon Forbidden West apparently cost $212 million over 5 years with 300 employees. And The Last of Us Part 2 cost $220 million with around 200 employees. Absolutely fascinating transparency. I mean, not just the transparency of the redactions, but like absolutely fascinating transparency to see what these games actually cost, how long and how many employees they're talking about. Now, it's not the whole story. 200 employees working on The Last of Us Part 2, that is not the number of people who were in the credits for that game. That game's credits list is thousands of names long, because there's outsourcing, and there's the people who they credit all the marketing team and all of the different heads of business in SIE and PlayStation Studios. There's so much that goes into that.
Yeah.
But the core development team, 200 people roughly, or 300 people for Guerrilla for Horizon Forbidden West. It's absolutely fascinating to see these two numbers come together, or these two games with all of their numbers come together. How do you take these revelations, Jeremy?
Fuck, they're expensive games.
God, they're expensive, aren't they?
They're spending too much on these games. Sorry.
They remind me. It's a similar amount of spending that you see for like Marvel movies, right? They're like 200, like 300, 400 million. Or it's like, okay, guys, you really are betting a bit of the bank on this. And, by the time they were spending that much, they'd established enough like cachet that it was a bit more assured, but still like pumping that many hundreds of millions of dollars.
And you know what? When I think about how much money they're spending on Marvel movies, Kerry.
Yeah.
When I hear the phrase Secret Invasion cost $221 or $212, whatever it was, $1 million for that show.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, the entirety of Hollywood is going on strike.
Yeah.
Because they are not getting paid residuals, because they are not getting paid real money.
And also Hollywood wants to turn everyone into AI and not pay actors anymore.
And also Hollywood is saying, if you're ever an extra in anything that we ever do, we own your likeness in perpetuity. Right? Which is what companies like Netflix are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You really got to wonder, when is the great strike going to happen in the games industry? Because we know that it's bad out there over in Hollywood land for a lot of folks, right? Like they're really not making a lot of money. For
games or for movies?
For movies and TV shows, right? Like a lot of the people that are working on these are not making a lot of money. There was a wonderful TikTok by one of the a named character. I'm not sure in what capacity of a lead they were, but a named character in Orange Is the New Black. Getting her residuals check from Netflix. and I think it was like 73 cents or something.
Oh my
Yeah,
god! Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, and like that show is not in its popularity peak anymore, obviously, but still, that was a really popular show and would continue to be a very, very popular show.
Yeah,
and then she's making like cents, right?
mm-hmm.
And then it's like
maybe not worth the amount of paper in the envelope and the shipping.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, and then you look at games, and you look at how much money video games are making. And you look at the salaries that some of the people that are working on these games are, and I don't expect that first party Sony or Microsoft games are in the lower end of the spectrum by any means, but these games continue to make a lot of money.
So much money.
They look at 200 and how much was it? Sorry,
212 for Horizon Forbidden West, and then 220 for The Last of Us Part 2.
And they look at that and they go like, we're willing to bet that money that it'll come back, and then some, to spawn another one, to build an IP, to make a HBO show, to make a movie, etc., etc.
Yeah, to spin out the franchise into a Monster Hunter multiplayer experience.
Mm-hmm. And then there's live ops, and then there's DLC, and then there's merchandise. There's a lot of things that you can do, right? And it's and like a lot of these things, like these are high risk money, right? I would bet that maybe not this level, but Days Gone, a big game with a big marketing push, I think would at least hit 2/3 of this budget.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Just on PlayStation, just on being a PlayStation exclusive in the heyday of the PS4.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The thing is, though, their targets aren't just to clear the budget. No. It's to clear and exceed the budget.
They need to be mega hits. And like, I don't know if Days Gone, like I'm assuming it broke even. I'm assuming. I'm sure it did probably okay.
I mean, the studio hasn't closed, so
totally. Like, but they're not making new projects, right? And
or they weren't, but are now.
Yeah, who knows what Bender's doing?
Allegedly.
But like, there is not going to be a Days Gone 2. It is not the mega hit that everybody involved wanted that game to be, and so like they need those games to absolutely fucking hit for
just like slay.
Yeah, because otherwise they don't make it back. Which is like, that's really dangerous.
Yeah, well, it's risky, right? But more than that, it also necessitates a certain amount of quality. I remember, was it you who was saying that like God of War Ragnarok had so much money and time and energy put into it? It was like so much of a game that it kind of couldn't fail.
Yeah, like
on a level.
Yeah, like there's a.
It's beautiful enough, and it plays well enough, and it's not too buggy enough.
Yeah, like that game is so expensive. It's gonna come out kind of rounded in a way. Like it'll work. You'll get to the end. You'll probably enjoy it for the most part. It's like the too big to fail is a ridiculous thing, but like there's a reason that exists as a concept of like, yeah, like I'm sure it'll be fine, Like they're not like the MCU is probably never going to release an absolute stinker of a film that is going to just be like a complete failure of everything,
of like cinema.
Yeah, like it is not going to. They're not going to release like my mind goes to like Batman and Robin, the George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger Batman from the 90s. Like that was like a complete stinker, even though it made money in the end. It was like a critical failure, and it put people off the IP.
Yeah, totally. Like did damage to the IP.
They're never gonna let a movie get to that point. And Sony, realistically, I don't think are gonna let a game get to that point.
So Batman and Robin, for those who are interested, like I thought about it. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, it grossed $238.2 million worldwide against a production budget of roughly 125 to 160 million.
Yeah.
Considered a commercial disappointment at the time, making double the budget, close to double the budget, if a bit less. But yeah, I mean, 125 to 160 million in 97, that is a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Like no one looked at that movie and went like, this movie didn't make money. The thing is, what it did is it ruined anybody's interest in seeing another Batman movie until Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, that's a good point. Until they put it on ice and then gave it a new fresh start.
And they were working on Batman for quite a long time. Like throughout that entire period, they couldn't figure out what to do. Like they had directors come in and out, they had actors come in and out. They had projects start and halt development over and over and over again until Christopher Nolan pitched him his Batman. But like that's a long time in between drinks.
Absolutely. I edited a video about Oppenheimer for work this week. And as a result, I was watching some Batman Begins footage to find like clips of Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. And then I was like, oh, that movie, I should watch that movie again. And I did. And that movie is fun and nostalgic and like a little off kilter. Like it's not as, there's a polish you get with Nolan movies from The Dark Knight onwards that is like part of his style. And like, this movie's just a bit less clean, and I love it.
This is Batman Begins.
Yeah, Batman Begins. Yeah, like some of the choreography is really hokey. Like,
a lot of the fighting in that film is very like quick cut fighting.
The scene I'm thinking of is when the big building on the mountain explodes. This is completely irrelevant to the FTC. I'm sorry.
That's right.
But when the building on the mountain explodes and Liam Neeson's unconscious and he's sliding across the ice, but and then Bruce is there and he's on the ice and he turns around and then it's like a first person camera shot of sliding down the hill and Liam Neeson's not there, and then it cuts to seeing Bruce sliding down the hill, and then you could see that Ra's al Ghul's there, and then they catch him, and then like that literally looks like Christian Bale had to pull him up off the cliff. Like that looked like he's screaming like it hurts, and it looks like it hurts. Like there's good stuff in there, but with all these cuts, it's like whoa. It's like what's going on?
Yeah.
Anyway, that movie's fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the games cost so much. Yeah, like The Last of Us 2 didn't need to be as large as it was in terms of scope. I was saying this from the moment I finished it. I think that game is too big. Like, not in terms of how much money they spent on it necessarily, or like how many people worked on it. I think it went for too long. I think there were too many encounters. I think they weren't all up to the same standard that the rest of the previous games were. I think it was so broad in some areas that it lost its focus. And I just think about how much money they could have saved if they focused in a bit more and made a game that was just a bit more cut down and would have maybe appealed to many more people and been cheaper. And they could have charged the same amount for it.
I don't know.
It did not need to be as big as it was.
No, I know, but they also like. I think that game was in a little bit of trouble anyway, and because like, you know, there was the multiplayer things that they were planning and then cancelled, and so like the budget for that I think is harder to reckon, only because they had, you know, plans for an entire an entire multiplayer that is since not still released, and so we don't know what split of that is across those two. I think that one's a little bit more opaque to look at. The part of this article that I think actually interests me the most is that how much money Call of Duty makes on PlayStation.
Oh, yeah. Is this the 800 million figure?
So it's just going down the article. We already knew that the figure was over $1 billion, but the document suggests Call of Duty was worth 800 million for PlayStation revenue in just the US.
Oh my God.
In 2020-21.
Whoa.
And we think the document says it's 1.5 billion globally. it's a little bit tricky
Just
to read.
for 1 year from that one franchise. I mean, I remember when I was skimming through this, the judge was saying like, why are we just talking about Call of Duty? That's why.
And that's just the game alone. When you count in accessories, subscriptions, and everything else, that jumps to what appears to our eyes to be 15.9 billion per year, or 13.9 billion per year. It's again harder to read.
And that's just PlayStation's cut of those purchases. Activision is making is taking the cut from every platform purchase.
Yeah. So how much does Sony share with third party publishers like Activision? This one's fuzzy enough that we can't confidently translate it, but the typical margin looks like it might be 10%.
Oh my God. So they're making 10% of those purchases and then earning, what was it, 15 billion a year?
15 or 13, depending.
So 13 to 15 billion a year.
The document also reveals that Sony only has one more Call of Duty game as part of its exclusivity marketing deal with Activision. The last game, quote, the last game covered by the contract is a Call of Duty title to be released in late 2023. Reads part of the document from Jim Ryan that wasn't properly redacted.
Goodness me, that is intense.
Yeah.
So that's what Sony stands to lose by losing Call of Duty. That's why they've been fighting so hard. But
and
Buddy in the chat makes a good point. Now double it. Now that number is what Microsoft will make off of all Call of Duty sales on PlayStation. Now Microsoft gets that cut of the internal side.
And it's also it's what they both stand to lose by making it exclusive, right? Like it was never going to go platform exclusive. There is just too much money made by both sides for it ever to be a consideration that they ever would have done.
Yeah, the 10% of that PlayStation is earning, there's another 90%, some of it going to PC. But like there's another 90% of that, and the majority of it, is going to Activision. Xbox now gets the share of that pie, which is so many numbers. Like I was going to say, it's an X figure amount. I don't know how like 100 billion, how many figures is that? I think that's a 12 figure number.
I don't know. I don't count zeros.
I'm pretty sure it is. I think that's a 12-figure number.
Yeah, right.
In 1 year.
It's a lot of moolah.
I mean, it immediately pays back with their purchase of Activision and Blizzard and King.
That's
with
the thing.
Just the revenue of Call of Duty. I mean, it's got to go to the studio and all of that, but like,
yeah.
Wow, that's a big number. Wow, that's a big number.
That's a big number. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's finish off. We've got one last little tidbit here. So this was one that Tom Warren explains why this is so important in the block here. So I'll just go through it. Then the FTC suddenly let slip that Microsoft would need an additional 2 million Xbox Game Pass subscribers a year to offset an unknown drop in Call of Duty royalty rates from PlayStation, saying that if PlayStation went exclusive, the only way to offset that via Game Pass numbers would be through 2 million extra per year. So not just 2 million tomorrow, but also the next year again, and then the next year again. So that is a lot. You could hear an audible gasp at the information getting leaked in real time before the FTC apologized and described a scenario where if Call of Duty royalties dropped, a shift toward Xbox consoles or Xbox Game Pass would help offset the losses. While the FTC didn't read out all of the exact numbers in this scenario as they were supposed to be confidential, it's clear Microsoft has been looking at models where it makes a lot less money from Call of Duty on PlayStation. Man.
Yeah.
So funny. I mean, it partially goes back to what we were saying before about how the FTC, they're good at being in court and they're good at taking big companies to court, but they can't look at a document and recognize what is and isn't, or what should and shouldn't be confidential just by looking at it, because they're not experts in like knowing about Xbox Game Pass. They've read up for this, but they've had to also read up about cloud gaming, Call of Duty. They've had to no doubt read up about the Activision and Blizzard allegations of like employee assault and all of that. Like
it reminds me of the Epic Apple trial, which was just accidentally leaking all of the different deals that Epic had decided to that Epic had announced and had not announced. One of them
and they
was
would say, actually, yeah, that's right. Wasn't it one of those? They were like, actually, we redacted that in court. You should not be reading this out right now.
It was, there was because they didn't realize that Paradox was the name of the game studio. They thought they were talking about paradoxes, and the judge was reading it like, what do you mean like paradox? And they were like, please don't, like that is confidential information. Please don't make that loud.
Yep. Yeah, it's so funny. And then like, what do they have to like? I seem to remember them being like, they took 5 minutes to like point out what they shouldn't say.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, what a mess, and what a hubbub for the same result. You know, like this is what Microsoft wanted all along. Maybe they've had to make a couple of concessions that they wouldn't have had to otherwise. But like at the end of the day, they will own Activision Blizzard King. Call of Duty will stay on PlayStation for who knows how long.
At least 10 years, probably.
Probably 10 years. If not longer, maybe if Xbox really wanted to sweeten the deal, but like they didn't necessarily have to either. So there's the idea I remember someone saying in the last couple of weeks. There's been so much discussion about this. I don't remember who was talking about it, but I remember someone saying like you would see that 10-year deal as Microsoft then going to some of their studios and saying, right, you've got 10 years to come up with a Call of Duty replacement. Go. Because by the time Call of Duty comes off, we need something that can bring in the amount of money that we are losing by taking that franchise off of PlayStation. We need to make up for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, and it there are uncertainties around some things, even with Call of Duty on PlayStation, because like what I was talking about before when I was trying to remember what that Call of Duty thing was that just apparently doesn't exist, that I made up in my brain. I'm gonna now, I guess, like just feel that out just for a second, which I think is interesting because
if this hypothetical game existed,
is that like what happens to the case that they make where they've said like, hey, like Warzone 3, this is like a streaming only game.
Oh.
Like, this is not a game that we sell physically.
Right.
And it's like...
So you can get it on PlayStation Plus Deluxe in some territories.
Yeah. Or it's made with just a certain level of architecture that demands lower latency than our competitors are offering. You know, like I don't know what happens at that point. Like I don't know what you can and you can't get away with. Mm-hmm. You know, do they make the next Xbox controller have a button that sits on the controller that is in a different spot that they say is required? You know, like, you know how like, you know, it's like there's a button in the middle of the back of the controller. You know, like right.
On an Xbox controller.
No. Like I'm making it up, but like there's a button right there, right? What's that button? That's like that's the Call of Duty button.
Yeah, that's the microtransaction button.
Yeah, the PlayStation controller doesn't have this.
Yeah.
Therefore, we can't support Call of Duty on the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just math, and then it's. Is it worth us shipping every one of our controllers with this button, the Call of Duty button, because that makes us that makes us the amount of money back?
Yeah.
On
Or what if it's this? What if all that they make a new standard Xbox controller that have back paddles by default, and all of a sudden, everyone playing on Xbox has back paddles?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it is all of a sudden competitively advantageous. Even if they don't stop releasing them on PlayStation, they're quietly steering hundreds of thousands, if not millions of players away towards a system that has superior control options for something where people want that superior control.
You know, and like they do that, they do that to themselves every console generation. There's a reason why PS4 controllers don't work on a PS5?
They don't work on a PS5 game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for them not to.
What do you mean? You don't get the you don't get the haptic triggers and
the worst battery life.
and worse battery life.
Yeah.
There's no microphone in the PS4 controller, Jeremy. How can I go
for when you want to annoy people on Call of Duty?
I was thinking to like make the wind turbine blow in the PS5 version of It Takes Two.
Yeah.
That's not what they do, by the way.
No, I know. Yeah. But yeah, like they do that to themselves. There's no reason they're going to not do it to one of their competitors at one point.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you know,
it's only fair.
Maybe that deal has that included. You would hope so.
What, like protection from shitty business like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like,
it would be tricky with how quickly they threw this together over the last few days. You'd have to wonder.
You also got to wonder how old that deal really is. Like how long that's been sitting there. It's not like that they only reached out to each other after the FTC. Like I'm sure that this was drafted up and they've both looked at it and not agreed to it until this point.
Yeah.
And they both
it's like, hey, now this has happened. Let's come to the table. Let's talk about this offer you made.
Yeah. Like they're both wise. They understand that stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. Like at the end of the day, it'll be, you know, we're 2 or 3 years into the Bethesda acquisition, and we're starting to see the fruits of that now with Redfall launching exclusively, Starfield launching exclusively. It'll be interesting to see what else of Bethesda's going forward will be exclusive.
Pentiment.
It could be everything. Pentiment, yeah. Well, that's not Bethesda.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's Obsidian.
Sorry. It'll be fascinating to see in 2 to 3 years how this shakes out, what it will be. Do we see resurrections of old franchises that Activision didn't value as much, but maybe Xbox does? Do we see an increase in monetization strategies akin to what you see in Call of Duty Warzone in games like Halo Infinite or Forza? Like, stuff like that. Like how does this shake out? And also, what games from Xbox's release, from Activision's releases, Blizzard's releases, going forward will be exclusive to their console? Diablo 4 won't be, but you know, what else is? I mean, is Blizzard working on anything else? Overwatch 2 and Diablo is it, right?
I mean, I'm sure they've got another StarCraft somewhere in the works. They've still got World of Warcraft.
Nothing we're hearing about.
No, not really. But like I'm sure they've got something.
How much do you reckon Xbox was like, let's get this before Diablo is set in stone, so we can have that for ourselves? I
don't think
it's probably not fast enough, right?
It was definitely not fast enough. I think. I think there was actually nothing like, aside from them just wanting it done sooner rather than later. I think there was nothing they were trying to hit. You know, like, cause like the only other thing I could think of is Call of Duty, which is sort of off the cards in terms of making anything exclusive anyway. Yep. So,
Jeremy, let me ask you this: is it going to be less than or more than 12 months until Microsoft/Xbox makes another acquisition, regardless of size? Less than or more than 12 months?
I think it will be more than. But I don't. So I think I'm going to go against what I said a little while ago, which is I actually think that it'll be more than 12 months, but I think they will do another big one.
Oh, really? You think they'll keep going?
Yeah.
They've got the taste for blood.
Yeah, I think now they can maybe look at something like Sega again.
Yeah. There's so many companies that don't look anywhere near as big as this now by comparison that are still huge. Like Sega could be like 10 or 12 or like 15 billion maybe.
Yeah.
But that's still a lot of money, but it looks like chump change compared to this deal.
Yeah. I don't think they will, but like, what if they went for Ubisoft? Like, it would be like, yeah.
I agree that I don't think it'll be soon. I think it will be 12 months plus, but I don't think they'll stop. There'll be more.
No.
I think we'll see something we'll see something big from Sony in the next 12 months.
Yeah, maybe
relatively, not 70 billion big.
No, but like Square Enix big, FromSoft big.
Yeah. Yep. Equally unappealing.
Speaking of unappealing,
yes, please go on.
I understand that we are running out of time rapidly. So
We're always running out of time.
We're always running out of time. So I'm gonna do a tight 5 on EXOPRIMAL. Maybe a little bit longer than 5. I'm not gonna limit myself to 5, but I'm gonna do a quick spiel on EXOPRIMAL because I played it over the weekend.
Great. How was it?
It is on Xbox Game Pass, which is how I played it because I didn't want to buy it. It's not great at all. It's not very good. Do you know what EXOPRIMAL is?
I didn't. I read 2 paragraphs of Mitchell's review in progress on IGN. And I was like, oh, I didn't know what this game was.
Yeah. So the reason I downloaded it is because of 2 things. One, because it had a cross promotional character that you could unlock. One Ryu from Street Fighter as a
robot.
There's a handful of Street Fighter characters in it, like Guile's in there and stuff. And they're all robot versions of themselves, and like it looks dumb enough that I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like
you're like, hell yeah!
It hit that middle ground of like, this is dumb and cool. And so I enjoyed that. But also you fight a bunch of dinosaurs in this video game.
Fight a bunch of exoprimals.
And the way it works is it's like you're doing like these war games in a. This story is really it's really hard to pay attention, and then some of the cutscenes started to fail, and so like I didn't get some of the story, and then my game like hard stopped in the middle of a cutscene where the audio kept going, but none of the animations were playing, and everything had frozen. And I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't skip the cutscene. And then when all the audio for the cutscene finished, it just left me in there. And I went, "Oh no!" And I haven't gone back to it since. And I will, but I haven't gone back to it since. That was a it's time to go to bed. Little reminder there. But like my understanding is that you're a bunch of futuristic people that go in Anthem Javelin-esque suits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And these war
quick and nimble mechs.
Well, like the thing is like you can swap what ones you want to be in, like on the fly. So you can be in a tank or you can be in a support, and you like physically get out of them, and you then walk around as a person until you hop back into one again.
That's cool.
No, it's not fun. Yeah, like that part of it is really weird. Like I don't like. I figured
it's like when Tony Hawk introduced getting off the board.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is like that. It is like, imagine every character can be Diva from Overwatch after she blows up her mech, and then can just be Diva running around with a shitty little pistol until she gets the mech back. It's like that part is not actually the fun part.
It's not Titanfall.
No, it's not Titanfall. And so you were doing these war games in like a simulated version of the city where they summon in a bunch of dinosaurs and you shoot them. and that's what happens. You shoot the dinosaurs, and then after that you then go to another little area and you shoot more dinosaurs. And your aim is to shoot more dinosaurs or the same amount of dinosaurs faster. I'm not certain. Than the opposing team that is doing the exact same thing as you are at this moment.
Now, is this opposing team other people?
Yes.
Real life people?
Real life people. I played with, I'm glad you asked, Kerry. I played with a very cool guy. And I took a photo of his name. I'm just going to, hang on, I'll do this. I'll swap it to here.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Does that work? You can't see. You gotta wait for the stream.
Oh yeah, that's all right. If anyone's watching this, there's a bunch of of my washing in the in the background. Ignore that.
It's fine.
I'll just hold my arm out here conspicuously.
Anyway.
Anyway, you said you played with a really cool guy. That was the last I heard.
I played with a really cool guy. His name was HR Buffenschuff. Which is just
that's a dino slaying name if I've ever heard one.
Which is 2 euphemisms for weed. And he was pretty cool guy. Anyway, you fight a bunch of fucking dinosaurs at the same time as the enemy fighting a bunch of dinosaurs.
Yeah. It's kind of like Gambit in a way.
Yeah, so this is the thing. It's like Gambit, but imagine if Destiny was only Gambit, because after you beat a bunch of dinosaurs,
no one wants that. Literally, no one wants that.
And then the game mode changes. The game mode then changes to like a control to push the payload type of game mode. But there's no defender or attacker. It's you're both pushing opposing payloads at the same time, while also in the same area, and so you're shooting each other. As your 2 payloads are getting closer together and then meet up in the same point in the middle, like almost in the same point in the middle. And
depending on how far the other team pushed it.
Yeah, so you're like shooting each other while the payloads are getting closer to each other and then getting it to the end. And like that's it.
Is that so? How much did you play?
I played a handful of games, like 2 or 3 games.
Okay. I was hearing some scuttlebutt today on a various Discord that apparently it gets into a flow of you play until a point of, oh, this is kind of boring. I wish they'd change this up. And then the story hits a point where they introduce new maps and mechanics at that point.
Okay.
And then you're like, oh, this is interesting. You play those up until a point of, oh, this is getting kind of old. This is getting kind of boring. I wish they'd introduce something interesting. And then they do something else again. Like it kind of goes through that cycle.
Yeah, I've noticed that anytime I get bored in the game, they give me a little bit more of a story cutscene.
Yeah, right.
Which is, I don't care for that almost at all. And the story is really bad, and some of the characters are fucking dreadful. It's not a very.
How much more will you be playing?
A little bit more. I want to play a little bit more. It's like you get dinosaurs not very often.
Yeah,
and I like dinosaurs.
You also get mechs not very often in games these days.
Yeah, so that's all right.
Yeah, how's the shooting?
It's fine. It's like you've got the same type of enemies with like all your abilities on cooldowns, all that sort of stuff. It's like totally fine.
Yep.
You know, you get down, enemies can your allies can get you back up again. You've got to some of them have shields like Reinhardt, some of them have grenades, some of them have like laser beams. Like it's all just like regular mech kind of stuff.
Not too remarkable then.
No, it is one of the most unremarkable games I've ever played if it didn't have dinosaurs.
Ah, damn. That's frustrating.
Yeah. It's what I expected, but that's
Game Pass, right?
Yeah, it's Game Pass.
It's
like worth trying on Game Pass because all you're really
it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, because all I'm really doing is wasting time rather than money. One is worth a lot more than the other, let me tell you. So
that's funny. Well, cool. I'm interested to hear how you find it going forward, but it sounds like it's not going to really shake up enough of the core gameplay to make a difference for you.
No,
if I had to guess.
No, no, it's not. It's just not.
Funny.
Anyway.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week, everybody. Thanks for sitting through our little technical difficulty right there. That was we had this in the pre-show as well, and we somewhat boldly, I would say, we went back to Discord as it came back online, but it just buckled under the pressure again. So we'll finish this on Google Meet for tonight. Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks for joining us. Oh, that's my bedtime alarm going off.
I'm so excited, really quick. I'm so excited to try Pokemon Sleep tonight.
Tonight?
It's out.
Oh, I will have to look at that. Yes, I want to try that. Although I don't know if they recommend you have it plugged in your phone plugged in the entire time during the night, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like you put your phone on charge when you go to bed.
Nope.
Really?
I put it on charge when it gets low.
Oh. I put it on charge every night.
Oh.
Okay. Learned a little bit about you that I wish I didn't.
Yeah, you've got that, and I've got my panic when it comes to your C drive and how full it always is.
Yeah. 15 hours.
Hey, if you want to keep in touch with us and keep ahead of when we release new stuff, you could follow all of our social accounts at MiniMapAU. You can follow us individually as well. Jeremy, where can they follow you wherever you want to point them towards?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Obi1Jez, on Blue Sky at Obi1Jez, on Threads at Obi1Jez, on Instagram on Obi1Jez, TikTok at Obi1Jez. That everywhere.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at KJPalmer_24. Everywhere else is a different name that I don't remember off the top of my head. Twitter for now, and if I move, I'll let you know. If you're on Hive, hit me up. I like Hive. I would like Hive to thrive, but no one's there. So, hey, you can also head to minimap.com.au for absolutely everything else Minimap related, including our Mini Disc Game Club podcast and our articles. For those of you that are live with us on Twitch, stick around. We're going to start the post show. I'm going to talk about my new SSD I installed in my PS5 this weekend. For those of you listening later or watching later, make sure to give us those positive ratings wherever you're listening or watching to us. It helps us out a lot with the algorithm and all of that nonsense. Just a reminder, we're live every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time if you want to join us for the live chats as well. Lastly, you could also support us on Patreon if you would like to do that. To help us keep the mics and lights on, you can go to patreon.com/minimapau, and for 5 Australian buckos, you'll get 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast, as well as more benefits, all while helping us out greatly. We're going to leave now before Google Meets decides to crash as well. So thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Have a good one. Stay safe, and goodbye now.